Yes. Puette tirvan pukit. I'm doing a Sami traditional song for you, if it comes. Sometimes it's not there always ready to start. Netzam nurapotzes mostaya Jayimil notaya rakapai saladia Man vednia dasas Jesuka deme Pael sadis naiche chetula mueche Man vednia dasas kechuka deme Pael sadis naiche chetula mueche Pori porimus poradeya Od kutla kutas on versta skeda Od kusa kula pai porat Kulle vein satsia jugad Man vednia dasas kechuka deme Pael satis naiche chetula mueche Pori porimus poradia Od kutla kutas on versta skede Pael satis naiche chetula mueche Spassap. It was a totally different laut. And I think there's a reason, like I said, sometimes the laut doesn't come. I was going to do a totally different one. But this one was about a girl rowing a boat across the lake. So maybe it was to do with the climate change that we kind of have the theme today. Puette tirvan pukit.
Spasab Hana Maria. Spasab for bringing your Sami culture to us through Lut and starting off our gathering. Am I accessible there in the room for y'all? All right. I hope so. I want to welcome you to Preserving Sami Plant and Fiber Arts in a Changing Arctic. I want to welcome everyone who's present here in Squigweltuwuf, House of Welcome, Longhouse. And since this is being recorded, welcome to those of you who will be sharing this experience with us in the future. And special thank you to Laura Vermeulen and the House of Welcome staff. Thank you to Anthony Lavenda and the Center for Climate Justice, the Center for Climate Action and Sustainability, more specifically. Thank you to Trevor Speller and Steph Beck and everyone at Evergreen who has made the bulk of the funding available to make the trip possible for these Sami artists, handcrafters. Thank you also to the Pacific Sami CRV who partnered with the college to receive the funds as well as raising additional funds. I also must mention my Sami American friend and colleague and cousin, Tim Frandy, who gave me the idea for a college nonprofit partnership in the first place, after it seemed there'd be no way to actually receive the college's support. Another thank you to electronic media, for coming out of summer hibernation and making this possible. And at the last minute, thank you. And additional heartfelt thanks to Misty Kalama and Trudy Marcelli, and to the ancestors who are always with us, especially Subi, Bruce Miller. This has been a community effort, but here we are, and a big olugitu, takaenu, spasab, and thank you to all. Now, I'd like to introduce the guests. Maybe y'all would like to go up and sit in the table at the front there with the microphones so that everyone can see you as I introduce you. So that you're facing outward, perhaps. So while they're moving, I'll be very clear that I am not with them because I managed to contract COVID, and I'm sad to not be joining. However, I am so happy that our guests are well and that they're there with you. I'm just going to quickly go through and introduce you. You can just sit. Your turns will be later. The way that the evening will unfold, I'll just go ahead and say that now, is that after this introduction, you might as well sit down because I'm going to be doing a few things. I'm going to be talking a little bit about climate science itself, and I'm going to share a PowerPoint of the things that we've been doing that have actually been fun, because there have been a lot of them. So you already just met Hannah Maria Kiprianov. So if you'll wave again, Hannah Maria, please. So Hannah Maria is Skolt Sami, as she said already, and Skolt Sami are located on the Finnish side of Sami. And then it looks like for me, to the left of Hannah Maria is Janne Helpi. So if you'll please wave, Janne is Inari Sami, also on the Finnish side. And then to the other side of Hannah Maria is Ritva Tamela. If you'll please wave, hi. And Ritva also lives in Inari, and she is North Sami. And then on your far right is Hege Renate Nilsson, and she is Coastal Sami from the Norwegian side. And we have another secret hidden guest who will be showing up later as well, actually from Sami. And it's right now about 3 a.m. But she's here with us, and she'll be watching the presentation, and then she will come in at the end. So I'm Maria Elohimo, and I'm Finnish American with Sami roots. I'm an ethnobotanist and natural dyer. Whenever I travel in Finland, I always spend time dyeing with natural dyers and with my own family whenever I can. In Sami, I'm always seeking to meet Sami dyers and handcrafters. I met most of these wonderful artists and handcrafters in front of you last summer. I asked how I could support their work of keeping their traditions strong, sharing them into the next generations, and even into a changing climate. They said they'd like to travel. Little did they know what travel was going to look like, but they wanted to travel. They wanted to come here to see new landscapes, to exchange with other Indigenous artists, and to return home inspired. Well, here are some of the memories they will bring home with them. And this will also give you a little sense of the joy and the character and the fun of these people. So I'm going to share my screen momentarily. Do this in the right order. Okay. Screen share. There we go. Okay. Can you all see these? everybody, the guests, if you turn around and look behind, maybe you can see these on the screen. These are some of the things that we have done. Hey, can you see that? It's your boyfriend. Finally, after 4 torturous days, everybody arrived and we had a welcoming dinner. First stop on the way to the ocean, the mermaid. She'll forever be called the mermaid in my mind now. Second stop was the Colonel at Kentucky Fried Chicken. And then it was Hana Maria's birthday. So we did a little celebrating. Now the work to prepare for the workshops, the exchange workshops began. That's where the rocks were used in the warp-weighted loom. And now exchange day 1. First there was root work and then leather work. And then Trudy, Marcelli, and family came in and taught basket weaving, as it was indeed an exchange. Creating color. Some of the lovely color results. This is Misty's husband, Kendall, and he was processing red alder dye from red alder bark, which Meredith Brooks from PSS actually brought to us that very day. The third day, I was not there. Some of the pictures, that were limited on pictures, but still, it gives a flavor. But this was the day for band weaving, ratnu, and medicine, making a medicine pouch. So this is the equipment for the ratnu making, the band weaving making. And the ratnu. And some of Misty's beautiful dye work, Misty Kalama, Puyallup. And with great gratitude. And then finally, here's Yanne, having a well-deserved rest. Okay. Let me escape this. So you can see they're very fun people. So now what I would like to do is to take a few minutes, and because our primary support came from Anthony Lavanda, and as I mentioned, the Evergreen Center for Climate Action and Sustainability. So we've been asked to focus some of our attention on issues related to climate change in the Arctic and Sami. So to set the stage for the guests to share not only about their lives and their handcrafts, but also their personal observations of climate change, I'll start with a short presentation, it's 12 minutes, that touches on climate science, on Sami itself, and general changes in the Arctic. Now, this presentation was created a few years ago for a Society of Ethnobiology conference, and there are numerous updates since that time. The only one I'll mention now is that rather than the Arctic warming twice as fast as the rest of the Earth, as was thought at that time, more recent studies show that the Arctic has already warmed at least 4 times faster. All right. So I will share this and then I will turn it over to our guests. This is a pre-recorded, so it might be a little weird, but it's a pre-recorded PowerPoint. I wasn't confident in my own abilities with my COVID right now. So I'm going to share this. My screen again. And I am going to play from start. Hi, I'm Maria Elohimo. With only 12 minutes to tell this story about Sami perspectives on green colonialism, I'll dive right in. Climate's a global circulatory system. What happens in one place affects what happens in another because the Earth is enveloped in a dynamic atmosphere that always seeks equilibrium. 3 interconnected atmospheric cells at low, mid, and high latitudes circulate warmer low-pressure air with cooler high-pressure air. In the Arctic polar cell, snow and ice accumulate and due to their reflective albedo effect, serve as an important regulator of solar inputs, playing a critical role in maintaining the global sweet spot that supports liquid water and life as we know it. What's happening in the Arctic is deeply alarming. The region has been warming more than twice as fast as the global average. This phenomenon is known as Arctic amplification. Reduction in reflective snow and ice allows more solar radiation to stay in the atmosphere, warming it overall and affecting atmospheric readjustments worldwide. Climate is a global system. A warming Arctic has local effects as well, such as disruption of ecological systems through invasive species. Eco-cultural systems are disrupted too, especially indigenous practices and lifeways. Many changes have both local and global effects. As a result of the melting permafrost, peatlands in the Siberian tundra have burned catastrophically over the last 2 summers, with temperatures reaching as high as 38 degrees centigrade or over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. These northernmost peatlands sequester over 50% of the Earth's stored carbon. The fires that covered Siberian cities with smoke also released over 59 megatons of carbon dioxide in 2020 alone. Industrialized nation states have long used the Arctic to extract resources, including fossil fuels. Now, despite the destructive effects of fossil fuel use on the Arctic itself and its indigenous peoples, these states seek to further exploit the region's resources in order to address climate change. While about 1 million indigenous people live throughout the Arctic, this presentation focuses on a region known to the indigenous Sami people as Sapmi. This is the traditional homeland of the Sami, who've lived since time immemorial in the northern parts of what are now known as Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Northwest Russia. The Sami people have endured colonization, racism, and extreme oppression, even eugenics, for many centuries. Sami is ecologically diverse, with milder temperatures than similar latitudes in North America due to the Gulf Stream. The region is characterized by taiga and a treeless Arctic tundra that's cold and often very windy. I'll return to this. Sami people in Fennoscandia likely number between 80 and 100,000. Between 25 and 50,000 speak one or more of 10 Sami languages, which are Finno-Ugric languages distantly related to Finnish. Traditional clothing known as gakti signifies regional and family connection. Traditional crafts, or dochi, are created from reindeer, tin, silver, wood, and wool. Sami people have engaged in diverse traditional lifeways, and today participate in virtually all mainstream professions. Yet reindeer are central to collective Sami identity, regardless of whether a person participates directly in reindeer husbandry. Sami people have always interacted with reindeer, first as hunters of wild reindeer, then through centuries of intensification, largely due to the pressures of colonization. Semi-domestication and herding of reindeer that naturally migrate from summer to winter grazing areas abundant with lichen have shaped community structures as well as Sami worldview. While technologies have changed over time, the centrality of reindeer has not. Now, let me situate myself in this discussion. I'm Finnish American with the last name Elohimo, that means clan of the harvest or tribe of life. I grew up close to my Finnish American relatives, and when my grandmother insisted that I visit Finland at age 16, I met some of my Finnish cousins for the first time. But it was only a few years ago that I learned from another side of the family that I have Sami ancestry. There's much more to this story, but alas, I only have 12 minutes. So fast forward to last winter, when I taught a program at the Evergreen State College called Climate Change and Colonization in the Arctic, Who Are the Sami? With the help of Sami scholar and activist Ellen Marie Jensen, 6 Sami guests from across Sami participated in multiple interviews, which I later edited to create a webinar that was shared publicly on Sami National Day. In these conversations, I gained a deep awareness of not only the direct effects of a warming climate on the Sami, but also the devastating effects of what many Indigenous people call green colonialism. I'll focus the remainder of this presentation on one type of green colonialism, wind power. There are others. First, however, we must recognize some of the direct impacts of climate change on reindeer. For example, snow now arrives later in fall, and temperatures fluctuate dramatically throughout winter. This fluctuation causes the snow to repeatedly melt and refreeze, becoming, as one Sami herder put it, like sheet metal. The reindeer then spend enormous amounts of energy trying to reach the lichen. If they don't succeed, they may starve. For example, over 60,000 reindeer died from starvation in 2013 on the Siberian Yamal Peninsula. Most of us think of wind energy as one of the cleanest and greenest alternatives to fossil fuels. Indeed, the Global Wind Energy Council reported that the total global wind power capacity at the end of 2020 was enough to avoid more than 1 billion tons of global CO2 emissions. And to meet emission reduction targets, wind power production will need to triple by 2030. Remember I mentioned windy conditions on the tundra? In the atmospheric polar cell, cold, high winds, approximately 50 to 100 kilometers per hour, can rush south from the North Pole, gusting through the largely treeless tundra. A prime location for wind power, right? Or is it? Ristin Turi Alexanderson is a reindeer herding Sami who lives near Tromsø, Norway. Ristin and her family care for their reindeer throughout the seasons. She explains that reindeer need low, easily accessible areas for winter grazing land, which is exactly the kind of area preferred for wind projects. In fact, despite Sami resistance, including Ristin chaining herself to a tractor to try to draw media attention to the issue, a wind project with 68 turbines now occupies much of her reindeer's winter grazing land. As a result, Ristin and her family must give their reindeer additional feed, in this respect, treating them effectively like cattle. Ristin asks with dismay in her voice, how does that change both the nature of the reindeer and the nature of the interaction between reindeers and us human beings? Eva Maria Fellheim's father and ancestors come from the southern part of Sami on the Norwegian side. Eva is a PhD student, an activist who's worked in solidarity with the Zapatista movement in Chiapas, Mexico, and as you can see, a journalist. Eva explains that sometimes wind projects facing Sami resistance are simply issued pre-approval licenses by the government, which effectively allows construction to begin. Recently, one reindeer community on the Norwegian side tried to stop a proposed wind project in court. They lost and also had to pay the equivalent of $250,000 in legal expenses. Then they requested a 1-month pause in construction for the reindeer spring migration, but construction was only shut down for 3 days. This stressed the pregnant female reindeer and caused overall chaos among the herds. Eva also notes that the reindeer are fearful of the spinning wind turbines. as much as 200 meters tall, and sometimes won't get closer than 10 kilometers. With wind projects dotted throughout the region, seasonal migration could become difficult to impossible, and ultimately make it difficult to impossible for many families to keep their herds at all. No wind project exists in isolation. Many other controversial energy projects exist or are planned, and each site requires infrastructure. A major proposal that gained traction in 2017 was a 520-kilometer railway to be part of a major route between Asia and Europe, with a melting Arctic sea lane and across the Norwegian and Finnish sides of Sami. It would slice through reindeer herding districts like national borders do already, and also endanger the lives of any nearby reindeer. Sami resistance to the railway was loud and strong. While the project was nixed in early 2020, though for economic, not ethical reasons, Sami relief was short-lived. Soon, the plan came back to life based on promises of private investment. So the struggles continue. An important victory did come to one Sami reindeer community on the Swedish side in January 2020, after a 30-year battle and a 10-year court case to reclaim exclusive rights to manage hunting and fishing on their ancestral lands. In this landmark case, the working principle was that occupancy of land since time immemorial afforded the right to control resource use. It was the first time that the Swedish Supreme Court acknowledged Sami rights to land use through historical precedent. Importantly, the Supreme Court's decision referred to ILO 169, even though Sweden hasn't ratified it. Even if the Nordic states' motivations are to look good on the world stage, Sweden's nod to ILO 169 may be significant to the many cases in Norwegian courts, since Norway is a signatory to ILO 169. Unfortunately, the success in court did not end centuries of racism. Even death threats and killing of reindeer followed the verdict. Inspired by Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the 3 Sami parliaments are planning similar commissions in hopes of addressing systemic discrimination. It will be a risky and painful process. In closing, Sami people are not saying that wind power is inherently bad. They are saying that so-called green solutions, based on the same values that created climate change in the first place, will not provide lasting solutions to climate change. Sami seek solutions in which they retain sovereignty over their own land, based on their own values, such as Oktavuota, the interconnectedness of all. When asked what we as non-Sami people can do to support Sami efforts, lastly, and importantly, Lastly, and importantly, the very presence of reindeer and their access to lichen and small plants helps keep areas open for snow cover, which helps maintain the Arctic's precious albedo effect. Sami and reindeer are themselves protectors against climate change. Ologitu. Thank you. Okay. Let me close that and come back. So I hoped to give a framework. Am I visible now again? Am I there? Anyone tell me? Okay, thank you. And that's it for me. We will now meet the artists who've come to visit, and each will take a turn sharing, talking about their lives, their home, their arts, their handcrafts, whatever they choose, and any experiences or perceptions that they have personally had about climate change. And we will take questions at the end rather than after each person. So I think that's it. Thank you. And let's start with Hanna Maria.
Tirv epet. So far, so good. Tiedopukit monlam tiurel ol Hanna Marjas. Mon jästam sevet jaurast, monlam samlas. Monlam tuejast, museejast, topen taharrapeova. Av musei, kot mainast mii mainsit, kot mii läptäit mättä. I guess everybody understood that. Good. I am Jiurel Ol Hanna Marjas. That's my Sami name. There's my grandfather, my father, and then me. I work at the museum. I'm a Skål Sami. I live on the Finnish side in Finland, Sevettijärvi. But I work on the Norwegian side in Neiden at the Av Museum. And Av Museum, Skål Sami Museum, tells the story about the Skål Sami as we know it today. I added a few photos just to kind of show where we are. There with the white text is kind of where the Skål Sami land is. Can you see it? Then we start the story kind of like before the borders. There were some kind of borders. We had 7 sidas, villages, 7 different, kind of like a municipality with its own village older and so on. And that was a situation where we started. After borders, now I wish I could, I'm gonna run to this side here. And just so the Zoom also knows, I'm gonna show just few borders and say few years, and then I'll come back and say it again. Sorry, I can, okay. So, there, this small, I'm a little bit too short for this one. The one between Norway and Russia, and here's Finland. Between Norway and Russia came the first border, 1826. So that was the first time that they started to kind of make us apart and try to kill our culture. Then there was this other border, which doesn't show in this picture. It came in 1920. And it started from the Muech, came through Suoniel, and all the way here. And that was the first border between Russia and Finland. And that was after First World War. Then, this is kind of the today that we live in. It has the Norway, Russia, and Finland. And it is kind of they try to kill our culture every once in a while with all kinds of things, but so far they haven't succeeded in that. But that's kind of a little bit information. The Skål Sami live today on 3 different countries. But, okay, now I'm talking to this one. All right, I'll just put it there on the table. You should think that we would be used to this old technique during these COVID years. But sometimes it's not so easy. There's a tree. It means a lot for the Skolt Sami. It kind of gives us food, means to move from place to place. Dishes, gives us possibility to make dishes. And probably, a little bit of medicine, of course. But it is the one and which plays a big part in our life. I talked a little bit about the food. So this is biech in my language. It's the pine. And in the picture you can see the old way of taking the inner layer of the bark. And from that you can get flour. And it is high in vitamins. It has gotten a little bit of a bad name because of famine. But now again, it started to rise as today's superfood. Now I'm going to show you a video. It kind of shows how to pick pine root, but this is about the root zone boat. This is the one means that the pine gives us to go across the lake and above. And let's see.
Нет же много подождать мостоие. Я имею стер пошел ладия. Мон вет не важки сука деме. Не стер акжвете лай. И пуще.
I did something.
Стоия, я имею стер пошел ладия. Мон вет не важки сука деме. Не стер акжвете лай. И пуще вани. От кустора сон вертажете. Мон вет не важавате деме. Поел записной сеть улабнуть. Shut the bed for you, Чате, Челушта лапай порад. Он весь не до чего ваделен. Поел записной сеть улабнуть. Пори, мусь поради.
Työmuori.
Tuohimuori.
Eli niin mikä se on työpuu.
Vetti, vielä voisi viedä. No niin. Se niinku, mun sais kainaa.
Täytyy vaan sieltä asti käy. Joo. Tässä
Tää meni eri. Mutta meni kuitenkin. Siinä kyllä ei ole mitään. Mutta suurin osa on huono.
Jätsäs ruopessa mätsäraaja, elja päiv kohta vaille prasnekaaja. Mon vet njödas päivän soladama. Säi mielt nuotta jaur akka. Nuotta jaur akkas litsut kutse. Nuotta jaur akkas illa vuodits. Kutta inversta sede.
Anna kirkollesi voitto vihollisista ja suojele ristilläsi sinun valtakuntasi. Aplodit!
That was a project. The whole village was part of it. It was, well, as you saw, there were different people all the time, but there were few that stayed from beginning to the end. And then the people from the village, whoever had time, came by and helped. I've done a ton of cleaning up of those roots. This is kind of like the thing that you pull the root through so you get it nice and clean. Also, I don't have it with me. It was too big for my suitcase, but I usually use one made from antler because in this video they had the wooden, but I use antler one to pick the roots from the ground. So now that we're talking about the climate, I think the next project should be that they can take the four-wheel to the forest and they have to saw it by hand. Here's some pictures from the picking up. The best place, you have to try to get the root as long as possible and as straight as possible. Then the sandy ground is the best place for it. One thing for the Skuld Sami, which has always been a very strict rule. If you take something from the ground have to look exactly the same after you leave. So you can't just pick the roots up and then just leave. Also, there's another rule for picking up the roots. never do it same. You can't do the same place every year. You have to change it. Sometimes it's quite hard because you know where to find them, the really good routes, and you can't go there, but you have to mind and be patient. You can go there again after 2 years. But it is a very strict rule. And never, ever take more than you need. That's also another strict rule. On the table there, I have some roots. I have beginnings of root work. We had little problems because we can't really bring the roots into the United States. But somehow, accidentally, we have some. This one on the table is birch root. It's thinner and mostly used to do all decorations like jewelry and pendants and stuff like that. Myself, I like to work with the pine root. It's a little bit thicker. It is a little bit more difficult to use it, but I don't know. The pine has hold on me, has had hold on me ever since I was born. This picture there is to show how to start your root work. It doesn't matter which root work you do, well, maybe not on a boat, but if you make a dish where you can eat, or pendant or whatever, this is the way you start it. This is the first thing you do. As I'm here speaking, I kind of realized that I don't have that one book with me that I could show all the pictures of the dishes, but maybe I can find them later on and show them from the computer then. Then the climate change. It is everywhere, and it shows. It was about. I'm kind of speaking on behalf of Janne also. Ritva has her own story about. But the climate, well, kind of. If you look at it in my view and my perspective, I can take the roots out as long as the ground is soft. So longer summers gives me more time to take the roots. But the summer is also busy collecting berries and doing other things. So I don't really have time to do the roots only the winter time. And if the winter gets shorter and shorter and shorter, when do I have time to do the handicrafts? Also, well, the pine is good for this one too, because it's kind of collecting all the, now I forgot what it is in English. Yeah, carbon monoxide, yes. It collects, we have lots of pine, but with the loggings, it's not so good anymore. But kind of it is a good thing that we have the pine and we take care of the pine. And now we're starting to realize that we don't need to do that much logging either. But also it makes me to wonder a little bit, how good is that park? With all the pollution and so on. I think the biggest thing that affects today, and I think it is kind of, well, the climate exchange, it is kind of difficult situation to talk about, because it depends on where you stand. It's bad for the reindeer herders, but you should do something about it. It's bad for me but I also should do something about it. And nobody is really starting to, like, what can I give up then? I need this. I need my cell phone. And I need all kinds of things. Today's world, the reindeer herders, they need more reindeer to survive in this Western world, the Western way of doing things. And at the same time, the reindeer are eating the liche, and it is kind of a balancing thing. So I think my grandfather was very wise man when he taught me. When I was a little girl, he said, "It is a nice gesture when you pick up flowers for your grandmother. But don't you think that your grandmother would love them more for the 3 months that they are alive in nature than the 2 days that they are alive in the living room or kitchen?" It started kind of a little bit, made me think about things. Do we need all? Of course, I have to have, when the sun comes up after 2.5 months, I have to have my tulips, the very first tulips in the vase, because it is my kind of offering for the, like, yes, we got the sun back. I haven't seen it for 2 months, so I have to celebrate something. But yeah, I guess I have to start to think about it a little bit more, and I can get some flowers that are actually growing in, maybe I have to celebrate the sun after midsummers, then we have flowers too. Yeah, but it's a difficult situation, and it depends always on which side of the lake the truth is always like kind of like a lake and a view. It depends on where you stand. It looks a little bit different. And now I lost the red thread that I had on my head. So maybe that's a time that I'm going to just show you one last video. This is kind of talking about the climate, but it's also about Sami tradition. And, well, I'm just going to show it, yeah?
The Sami archive form a unique body documenting indigenous Sami land and water rights. Preserved for centuries, the archive consists of written documents and acts. The scroll was kept inside a casing carved from a tree trunk and stored in a secret location known only by 3 trusted elders. This is a story how the Sami managed to survive and to keep their environment healthy to these days by combining the written word with traditional laws. For millennia have the Sami lived in northern Fennoscandia. 700 years ago, surrounding nations began to assert their power and expand borders to Sami lands. The area is now divided between the national states of Finland, Norway, and Russia. Sami learned quickly that most important for these newcomers was documented justification for land. To adapt to the new reality, the Sami began to invoke written contracts. The Sami archive consists of edicts issued by Russian emperors and the imperial government regarding the rights to pasture lands and the fishing territories. The oldest document is over 400 years old. These rights have never been ceded.
It's a document between the Russian Empire or Russian government and in whatever form Samis were governing themselves at that time, recognition of your traditional governance system.
The state of Finland did inherit the responsibilities from the state of state of Russia. And I think to a certain extent there was a goodwill, especially after 1944 and the relocation, to mark these territories very clearly to be used only by the Skolt Sami. There's a potential there that it provides a very strong hard law document between relationships that you have with the state of Finland, state of Norway and state of Russia.
Traditionally, Skolt Sami lands were owned by the community. Each family had their own areas for fishing, hunting, gathering and reindeer herding. The families would come to a mutual agreement about how they were allocated without depleting populations of fish and wildlife. Such decisions were made by the village council, Siitsopar in Skolt Sami language, where each family had a representative and decisions were made collectively. Second World War ended the self-rule. New borders drawn by national states divided people to 3 different countries. Only Finland included the village council to her constitution. Even with stripped power, the village council still has an important role. Many characteristics of the traditional Skolt Sami annual life cycle continue to play part of the living culture today and its intellectual awareness. Inclusion of the ancient Skolt Sami archive in the UNESCO Memory of the World International Register would have a great impact on the cultural and historical understanding, particularly for the younger generation and generations to come. The process resurrects the collective memory. Remembering why our ancestors have confirmed rights to our fishing lakes and rivers, hunting and grazing lands, we regain the strength of our people. We regain the traditional laws governing relationships with everything and everyone. When we remember how the ancestors protected our lands, we will remember our obligation to continue their way. This is our right and our responsibility.
Yes, that was my part. I'm gonna ask Janne to come up and tell a little bit about her handicrafts and her life on the Northern Territory. Just come on up and talk. I'll try to get that up. Can you come on? Okay. I need the next one ready.
The next, this one? Okay.
Just put it ready.
Okay. It'll be right there when you're ready.
And this one is
Are you playing this video?
no.
Okay. What do you need?
She doesn't need
Nothing.
Tiera puohait muu peeleest meittei. Mun lam Jane ja mun puotan Nellimist, Finland. Hello and welcome also. My name is Jane and I'm coming from Nellim, Finland. And I'm doing handicrafts. I'm working at home with 64 huskies and running around there in Lake Inari with customers in wintertime. But in summertime, I'm working with handicrafts and teaching them also in 2 different kind of school in Inari. It's like a part-time job for me. What else? Yeah, I don't have that kind of nice PowerPoint pictures and everything. I'm quite old school, so I don't know how to do those. There's books where you can see what kind of things I have made it. Yeah, I'm working with the wool, also dog hair, and mix it with the sheep wool. Spinning those, making a yarn, and then coloring it, knitting it. So yeah, old school. And then I'm also using reindeer skins, fur. Is it like
with a fur?
Yeah.
It's hide.
Hide, yes. And bones, antlers, nails, and then rest of we eat. What is left? I can make jewelries like earrings, bracelets for those bones, antlers. Of course, sisti. We made the skin of the reindeer, shoes, bags, everything. It's something what has like keeping us alive and warm in cold winter. Now these days we don't need that much those anymore because winter is not that cold anymore. At some point there could be, but we manage. Yeah. Maybe I'm done. You can ask me later. I'm quite nervous in here, but yeah, I think you all can go and check those, our handcrafts, what is there after this. So I'm saying takka ennu, kapotti tehin, mi ehitan. So thanks for all of you to join us this evening in here. So I think Ritva is coming next one, showing the Ratnu, and there is also lots of tea days coming.
Yeah. I am Ritva Tammela and I live in Inari, in Finnish side, north part of Finland. So I must tell you that my English is not so good, but maybe my friends help me. So, my mother teach me handicrafts because she is always doing something, and she was a schoolmaker, and she make these reindeer food leather koipinahoista.
She made shoes from the reindeer legs.
Yeah. So, and then when I grow up, I was very interested all kind of Sami handicrafts. So I take courses, and I will learn all kind of Sami handicrafts. So I learned to make leather, traditional way, and then I have leather, and I made like these packs and shoes and all kind things. And then I learn to tie natural colors. And of course, I learn to knit mittens and socks, and then we have one handicrafts, raanu. It was very important handicraft in all times. And I want to tell something about raanu. Sami in Norwegian side and Sami in Finland side, they have very old method to weave raanu, and it's called warp-weighted looms. And the original use of raanu is to protect and warm in Arctic conditions. And raanu has been excellent for that. It is very warm, thick, and waterproof. And it's used like cover. And the method of that warp-weighted loom is also known in Middle East and Europa. And similar way of weaving has been in ancient Greek. Before 560 before Christ. So, and when we weave the raanu, it's only one at time. Where is my and first, okay. Yeah. Yeah. First we make that kind of ribbon. And we... Voitko näyttää sitten sen?
Aika vähkin.
Joo.
Yeah. First, we weave this. The ratnu is woven on the warp weighted loom. This one on top, the yarn is spun in one way. The warp is spun in another way, and the weft is spun in a third way. So it's 3 different ways of spinning the wool to get a ranu done. This is one of the smallest one. The biggest one is, we do the metric system, so it's 160 centimeters wide. It's big, and 2 to 220 that way. We will show you a movie afterwards, so you will see the size of it and how it's done in the old ways. This is a tradition that Ritva has taken care of on the Finnish side, and I'm kind of one of those who's taking this on the coastal Sami side, on the Norwegian side. It's a tradition it's not so many left that does this in the old way. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And ranu becomes heavy and thick, so it's really warm. So,
Probably just show the video and just turn off the sound of the video, so they can kind of see when Ritva is talking.
mm-hmm. And Sami and Sami have been weaving.
It's probably there. Just tell, I'm sorry. Where's the sound? There's the sound. Is it on?
Y'all are doing great. I'm so sorry that I'm not there to help you out. You're doing wonderfully.
Kuuluuko tästä ääni nyt? Yeah. So they have been weaving since 600th century, and these are still in use. So,
Just try to start a YouTube video, maybe it comes up. Some technical difficulties. We'll try.
no,
You can't do that.
Yes, no, it's not showing. We can see why we're talking. There's no sound on the video.
yeah. Siis,
Do you want me to tell about it?
no. It's a lake. She's cutting. Okay.
We'll start it over. There you will see the size of the loom and also how she is weaving on it and using her fingers.
Kalga nanulaigi. Takalgo ne kiedet että kiekit.
Well, we probably don't use the sound because it's Sami, so you don't understand anything what she's saying. This one is sewn on the top first. Then we pick rocks. You will see in the bottom of the warp weighted loom, there are rocks. That's for keeping the warp down. The modern way of doing that is to make small pouches, and we weigh sand in those. So they had the same tension all the way through. But the sound of the rocks, kind of clinking, the sound they make when you're kind of making the shift, it's a kind of it's a sound. It's a calming sound. It's a sound I remember as a small girl. So this is the old way of doing it, and it's still being done.
Sen voi ottaa niin kuin. Onko tämä ollut jo tämä tyyni? Joo, no niin.
Vähän vaiheellista.
Yeah. First, they have in old times, they used animals' hides, and then they get the ranu. Ranu is easy to take when they are going to forest or to sea or to mountains. It was flexible and take smaller space. And they used Sami used when they go to sea, fishing, and Sami used when they are going with and moving the place with reindeers, and they have child and sheep with they, and then they cover with ranu, child. And the reindeer Sami used these. First they have poked ranus merisaamelaiselta. From the sea Sami. And they built, they have to buy 6 or 5 or 6 ranu, so they can build the tent when they live in mountains. And 1 ranu is a door. So, and summertime, when they have used ranu as a cover, they used wash in summer times. And when they used and wash many years, ranu becomes waterproof and windproof, so it's better to the tent. And Ranu is valuable when they have wintertime market. And then comes reindeer Sami with their reindeer, and Meri Sami have their weavings run. And so they exchange. One ranu, you get one reindeer, adult reindeer. And Meri Sami have also paid taxes by ranu in 1500 century. So, when the Sami people built houses, they don't need any more ranu to warming there. So they ranu is placed to wall, and ranu becomes a popular interior design element. And artists in Finland and Norway, they began to design their own models. So ranu is valuable still. So, and I have book here, one artist, so she is very famous about ranu. Oh, and one thing I have here. So, I'm interested in ranu also because my grandfather in Utsjoki, he was bought one ranu from Sami, and when we have the first Sami school founded in Inari, 1953, my grandfather's ranu is bringing to Inari, and they have teaching about ranu historia or how make the ranu. And then there meet two ranu weaving method. The old Sami and Sami method, and what we have in Finland is that original, siis tavallinen. Yeah. So, and this ranu is named my grandfather, my mother's father, and it's named Katjanilla. And that model became very popular in Finland sites. Yeah. And the old traditional is that mother learned to her daughter to weave ranu, and when daughter leave her home. Mother gives to daughter Ranu. So maybe that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I now have my, can you hear me now? I think y'all can hear me. Is that right?
Yeah.
Can anyone hear me there?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Because my mic was off for a while. Thank you, Ritva. Kiitos. I want to also thank Hannah Maria and Janne. I was unable to do that when you were both finished. So now I can. And I believe Hege?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we give the microphone to Hege now, tell about her.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hei, mitt navn Hege Renate Nilsen. Mun namn Hege Renate Nilsen. My name is Hege Renate Nilsen. Thank you so much for having us. I'm one of the Sea Sami, coastal Sami girls from the Norwegian side. Live up far north. Tromsø is my nearest town, and I have 2 hours and 15 minutes drive further north from Tromsø. That's my home. It's a small village called Kåfjord, Gaivatnes. It's about, well, approximately 2,000 citizens living on a kind of big area. It's a small fjord, totally different landscape from my Sami friends. We have big, big mountains. You will see some pictures. I think Maria has my PowerPoint, so if she will run that. Maria, will you share your screen? I work full-time as a paramedic in my area, but I also do handcrafts, and I do handcrafts the old traditional way. I work with wool, I dye with plants, I make my own leather, I make belts, handbags, the old traditional way. Also love weaving and making bracelets and so on. I have not worked so much with antler and bones as Janne has, but she's inspired me. You can see that on her beautiful handbag. And also I work with the ratno, as Ritva does, as an old tradition from our side. As Ritva told, that there's been an exchange from the markets. And nowadays, the ratno is a very expensive, kind of exclusive thing. Back in those days, you kind of get the big one for around, well, $20. Now you got to pay about 2,000 to 3,500, depends on size. I think she has my PowerPoint up. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, just you can shift the picture. I didn't know that we had all of this equipment here, so she has it at home. You can start it, Maria. There's my home. The picture on the right side is in a bigger perspective. On the left side is how far north I am. I live in a small fjord up in the north, in Sami. Next, Maria. This is my view. This is the Lyngen Alps you see in the background. And those are the last pieces of the last sunbeams of the midnight sun. We don't see the midnight sun anymore. We still have light, but it's starting to get dark. So when I get home, it's dark in the night. Next, Maria. This is my view. This is my fjord. Both in wintertime and in midsummer, the picture that's far, well, it's on your left. The picture in the middle is midwinters, and the picture on the right is up in our mountains. We use them both summer as winter time. Not in those 2 months, well, 3 months, December, January, February. It's so dark and it's so cold and windy that we are not up in the mountains then. But from late February all the way until the 1st of May, we also use the mountains. Next, Maria. In the wintertime, we don't use the traditional lavvo anymore. It's too much work to put it up. It's too much work to bring it up into the mountains. Some have some cottages like they use, and we also have reindeer herders family that lives up there in the summertime. They have the summer pasture up in our area, and they have the winter pasture all the way up to Finnmark. So they move their reindeer herd in between. We use the mountains for recreation. We go up there, we fish. And we also have those traditions that Hanna-Maria spoke about, that respect the nature and you don't take more than you need. Next, Maria. And of course, we have the Northern Lights. The picture in the middle is taken in December. That's one of our darkest months. But we have, I'm saying it's a magic light because it's kind of 1 hour when it's clear and cold. You have these blue lights and it's magical. But it's dark, almost 24/7. But of course, still we have the stars, we have the moon that light up, and we have the Northern Lights. Next, Maria. Well, I spoke about the mountains, but we also have a lot of weather. This is in the beginning of May. It's still winter, and we change our tires from the winter tire to the summer tires, and we have the date is 15th of May. And yeah, it's often, that's kind of the government's rule, but it's often that you woke up in the morning and you have this much snow on roads. So it's just to go outside, change back to the winter tires. I will say a little bit more of the weather afterwards. Next, Maria. We have also mountains all over. I have mountains all over. The mountains are beautiful, yeah, but they also kind of make shade for the sun. This picture is up in the mountain, up at the tundra, Tuoddari, as we say. It's taken at 3 a.m. in the night. And we are making food, fresh fish, and it's light. This is in July. So there are contrasts from the dark to the light. And it's all beautiful in each way. Next, Maria. Well, that's my home. That's where I live, on the foot of a mountain. And my view is the fjord. This is a fjord that usually is frozen in wintertime. It's often used to fish, to get cod, fresh cod among. The past 10, 15, well, maybe as back as 20 years, it's often not frozen. It's often unsafe to walk on. The weather is warmer. And the fjord isn't freezing anymore as it has been. Of course, they have electrified or built dams on our rivers to get electricity, and that also affects the freezing of the fjord. Next, Maria. I think that's a small movie.
My home is beautiful today. And we're making smoked reindeer meat today.
In the old traditional way, in the lavvo, in the Sami tent. We smoke fish, we smoke meat, and try to preserve it as they did before. Of course, we have freezers now, so we just put it in a freezer, but still, this is a kind of one of our traditions, and we try to keep it. We're also here talking about the climate change. Hanna Maria spoke a little bit about that and said from her perspective, and she also said that climate change is kind of on which side of the river you stand, it's kind of which perspective you have. As told, our fjord is not frozen anymore as it has been. The winters are warmer. It's more ice, it's more rain midwinters. I remember as a young girl that we have like a lot of snow, and we have those, well, when you kind of make the roads to get all these, I don't know what it's called in English, but we used to dig kind of caves, you know, when the wind makes all these kind of small mountains of snow. We dug caves in there. Those are gone. You don't see them not much anymore. It's more wind. That's some of the elders are saying that it's warmer and it's very much more windy. So all the snow kind of blows off. In the mountains, it's more ice. The rivers don't freeze as they has been like several years ago. That makes problems for the reindeer herders when they're moving their reindeers from the summer pasture over to their winter pasture. They depends on that the river are frozen so the reindeer can walk and come to their either which way. In the springtime, of course, the rivers are probably open, but then it's kind of warmer. But also it's a lot of ice, so the reindeer don't get to their food, the small plants and the lichen. And it's often that they have to feed extras for the reindeer, both kind of them pellets and kind of harvested grass and hay. So yeah, it's changing up north as well. It is. It's more, the weather is more unstable. Well, maybe it's more wind also, and it's more kind of extreme weather, like changing. It's snowstorms, it could be hailstorms, and the next day it kind of pours down and it rains, and it's just all icy and slippery. And the next day again, you have kind of below -15 Celsius. So it's not kind of that stable weather that it was, as I remember. I'm 46 years old, so I'm not that old, kind of starting to grow up. But it was kind of more stable winters, I remember, and a lot more snow. So something is happening, unfortunately. And I do hope that we can do something to take care of it, because they're coming after us also, who needs these pastures and needs this land. So, and well, you can look at our handcraft if you like to, and ask questions afterwards if there's something you wonder about. So, thank you so much for having us here and bringing us over and have this exchange. It's been really, really interesting and learning. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So momentarily, we will have another guest joining us from Sami. Before we do that, I wanted to give Ritva the opportunity if you wanted to say a few words about the climate aspect. You don't have to, but you had shared at home that there were some things that were on your mind about it. You don't have to get up. You can stay right there at your microphone. And you can also decline. It's totally fine.
I think that I can't explain because it's so difficult. Maybe you tell.
Okay, I'll do my best. We've been talking about it a lot during this trip. I'm not sure if it's a swamp or a marsh that we're talking about, but it is a really big thing for us. We get our berries there, cranberry and multibar, cloudberry. Okay, I'm in the verge of learning Norwegian, so now fluent in Norwegian. Who knew?
We learn from each other.
But there are these palsa. I don't even know. I tried to check the name in English, but I'm not sure. Sometimes it case palsa, sometimes it case something else. But it is kind of like an hill on the marsh, and underneath it's erosion. So it can be high, and underneath it's ice. And now that the climate change has dropped the temperature, higher the temperature, the ice inside the balls are starting to melt. So it goes down, and these balsa marshes are really important for the birds. Let me check if I can find another. This one was about reindeers eating too much light. But the balsa is like really... Do you have the magazine with you? She can put the magazine, and you can see from there. It is a very, very, very important for different birds. So now some birds are almost extinct because they don't, what's the word? Oh, now I lost every word. No, just a second, it'll come. It is kind of like adapting. The birds don't adapt so fast, and they have to find new hiding places and so on and so on. So this is a very important and very difficult thing, and kind of like you wish that they would lower the temperature so we get our balsas back. But I'm gonna there are some birds and some pictures of the balsa. But I'm gonna send it around so you can look at them yourself. And this is the one. But that is the biggest worry. And Ritva had a story. She's been going to this one place in Utsjoki to collect the berries, and ever since she was young, and now she almost didn't find the place because the balsa was gone. You know how we may sometimes go about our things and we have these landmarks to show us the way where we're going? So suddenly the balsa wasn't there, and it was like, am I in the right marsh or not? Because the balsa wasn't there anymore. So it is a big thing. And more, they seem like little things, but more and more they're coming up with in the day-to-day life. You notice, oh yeah, this affects me. You kind of think about the climate and climate change, that it doesn't affect me. Everything around me is okay. But I guess little by little you notice, and also little by little you should start doing things that you make little changes. Because I've heard that if you have a lot of small rivers, like no, it's not a river. What's the smaller one? Stream. When you have a lot of smaller streams, it comes a big river, and then it comes a big sea. So if we start doing the smaller things, then we end up doing a good, all in all. Did we?
Siellä on ne kuvat.
Joo, mitä siitä? Halusit vielä? Mä sitten jotain mainitsinkin.
Ai.
Joo, porot syö. And I'm going to show again. Oh yeah, and also this picture about the reindeer eating the leech from the balsa. It makes it uncovered and makes the ice melt even quicker. So that was also. Was there anything else I have to add?
Mitä sanoit?
Oliko vielä jotakin?
Niin, siitä Jäkälästä ne kuvat.
Joo, sen sanoin vielä.
Onko sanoin? Joo. Ei, mutta ne 2 kuvaa siitä.
Niin nämä. Oh, there's the light before and after the reindeer. And it grows really slow, so it takes time to grow back. All right, do we have now? Oh, that's one of the reasons that they don't use it to dye, because it grows so slowly. So it is forbidden to use it on a dye, because you need so big quantities of the lights that they rather leave it to the reindeer to eat.
It's all. Thank you.
All right, spassap, tackar. Kiitos.
Thank you. Well, we have one more guest, and I will try to. Here we are. The person I want to see. I'm ready to turn your. Ele Maria, can you turn your screen on, please? Wonderful. So I want to welcome Ellen Marie Jensen, whom I fondly call Ele Maria. And I mentioned her earlier as we've collaborated on other projects. And I'm so grateful that you're here at 5 a.m. You've been here with us since 3 a.m. But this is a special edition coming directly to everyone from Sami. And what I have asked, what Ellen Marie is going to do is comment a little bit on some of the things that she has heard the guests say. A number of you know Ellen Marie. So Hanna Maria, you know her. I don't know if Janne, you do. Hege, I know you do. So she's not a stranger to everyone in the group. But she'll make a few comments in relationship to things you have shared. And then I specifically asked her if she would talk about some of the recent Sami youth resistance it took place in Oslo, to really kind of illustrate the strength of young Sami people and the hope that that brings for going forward. So I will turn it over to you. And then I want to remind everybody again that when we're finished here, please, maybe if there's any questions that you have had throughout the time that are still percolating in your mind, make a note, and then we'll open it up for questions. All right. Thank you. Gitu, Ellen Marie.
Hello, Gitu. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Boris Bottenmovdan booked me. Welcome to my small presentation. As Maria said, I am coming to you from Sapmi. I'm in Guoldagatno in Kautokeino, where I live. I've been living here for 2.5 years. This is a reindeer herding community. 90% of the people in this community are reindeer herders or have some involvement in reindeer herding, I would say. Not everybody is actively reindeer herders as their primary livelihood, but they are involved in some way. It's probably the community that everybody in Norway thinks of as a reindeer herding community. When they think of the first place where there's reindeer, they think of Guoldagatno. However, I grew up in Minnesota, in the lands of the Dakota people, who I credit with some of my inspiration for returning to Sapmi. It was 25 years ago that I was involved in an Indigenous movement for sovereignty of Dakota sovereignty, when my Dakota friends and people I was working in solidarity with said, you need to go to your own people. You need to return to your people, which I did 5 years later, and I've been living here now for 20 years. My father belongs to a coastal Sami community. I don't come from a reindeer herding tradition very closely. I have reindeer herders in my ancestry, but at least 100 years ago or maybe more. And that is from northern Sweden, from an area called Idivuoma, Karesuando area. And many of us from the coast have roots in the inland. So I would like to say a little bit about something, a word I didn't hear brought up. Maybe it was, and I didn't catch it because I'm quite tired. I've been up all night. And that is identity. And one of the things that is so critical, I think, today that we're seeing in the face of what Hagen mentioned, and that is, she said, they're coming for us, they're coming for our resources, which is happening very much and at a very accelerated rate. And also, I just want to say to Maria, I just loved that 12 minutes. That was amazing. I hadn't seen it before, so maybe, I know you told me about it, but I would encourage people in Sapmi to watch that, because you give such a great overview also of the science of it, which I think many of us kind of lack the language for. But I think what's important today is that not only that we are acknowledging what is happening on the ground in our communities, where our resources are being, there's greater and greater pressure on our resources, especially in reindeer herding communities, but actually everywhere. And this is a case with mining, it's a case with wind power, which I'll come back to. It's a case with multiple industrial projects throughout Sami communities. And what I have seen in the last 20 years, which I think we can say a lot for our youth, is a movement for revitalization. Now, all of you have spoken to some degree to that, because many of the traditions that I think are amazing, Doyarat, our handicrafters and artists, are reclaiming, are things that were very close to going out of use, especially the Ratno. And this is something that certainly was in my family weaving. My ancestors, or my father comes from Finnmark, from West Finnmark, from not far from where Hege is from. However, our community doesn't have the degree that I see of this movement that you see in Hege's area, and I'm very grateful to the coastal Sami community where she's from for the work they're doing to highlight and just all the work that's being done to bring back coastal Sami traditions and ways and language and yeah, and especially the Ratnogodin, that tradition. And also building connections between all of us. And that's what I think was so important with this project and this event, that we need to be building relationships. And I've actually used, Mari mentioned in the 12-minute presentation that you saw, something from my dissertation, which was Oktavota or Oktashashvota, which means the community of belonging, or the great oneness connection. And this has been it's been a metaphor that I've used. I mean, it is an actual thing in Sami society. We use this concept a lot. The idea of like connection, who do you connect to, where do you belong, and how place gives rise to culture and meaning. And we absolutely have to have land and waters for the resources that people need for all the livelihoods. And as you've heard from our speakers, that we need these resources to continue crafting. You need the resources to be able to actually practice the culture. So that's one thing. And also thinking of ratnu, or weaving itself, as a metaphor for connection, and connection with nature, connection with one another, connection between communities. Also the idea of, the connection between the coastal Sami people and reindeer herders that came to the coast. Ratna was very important to that, to that connection. And also, if we think about traditionally, the Ratna was also a trade item, which I think somebody had spoken about, which also just reflects the importance of just sharing knowledge. So that's one thing. But the thing about identity, which I've seen in the last 20 years since I first arrived, and that is a very important, I lose English sometimes, even though it's my first language, opblomstring, flourishing, revitalization of people returning to the Sami community, and returning to Sami connections, and returning to a feeling of having a place and belonging. And a lot of that is happening through activism. And I think one of the most amazing things that I've seen in the last 20 years is just recently, where today marks 666 days that the Norwegian government has not followed up on the Fosen case. I don't know if anybody in the audience has heard of it. Of course, our Sami guests have heard of it, which is a case where the wind power company was given concessions to build wind power in a very critical grazing area in a South Sami community, in South Sami grazing area, Fosen Njarka, the Fosen reindeer herding district. And this is an incredibly challenging situation when the government itself is not following up the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court itself of Norway has deemed it illegal, and the Norwegian government has not followed up on it and done anything. Now, I recently heard something that was, I think, a theory, but I tend to believe it, that one of the reasons is about the need for energy for a U.S. military base. Now, don't quote me on it, but that seems pretty plausible. The other thing is just that Norway is under great pressure to produce energy for the European Union. They have all these agreements. And of course, the politics of the day is always sort of that which forces different problems into the Sami communities. I mean, so this is increasing now. But one of the things so I would like to show a photo from, if anybody has seen it, let's see, I need to share my screen. Share screen. And then just say a little bit about why I found this so moving, actually, from my own personal perspective. So this is, can you see it, Maria? Are you able to see the photograph?
Yes.
Okay, so this photograph has really been disseminated globally. And this is from after the youth activists. Okay, so 500 days after the Fosen case, or like judgment was made, where it was deemed that this wind power park was illegal. And this was the Norwegian Supreme Court. And the Norwegian government didn't follow up on it and did nothing. Actually, did basically nothing at all. A group of Sami youth and allies from the Natur Ungdom, I don't know what it is in English. Yeah, I should have looked it up. But anyways, it's a Norwegian youth organization, environmental organization. They took over, or they occupied, the Ministry of Energy and, let's see, what is it in English? Energy and, no, but I think it's petroleum and energy, and refused to leave for 8 days. It made a lot of international news. And in this time, what we saw repeatedly was that more and more youth were coming to Oslo. And the feeling that one got was that everybody was good enough in this movement. Every Sami who came was good enough. There was no question about, are you Sami enough to be involved in this? And many people like myself who come from communities where we've faced language shift because of colonization, Norwegianization. My grandparents spoke Sami as children, and because of a forced assimilation policy, and my grandfather was in a boarding school, they were forced to speak Norwegian. And so there's been a kind of, these, like in most Indigenous communities, you have issues around like who feels, Indigenous enough. And this was not the case that I saw it all play out in this movement. And I really see that as part of this generation's, the youth movement. And I see, and you can see here that this is just an enormous crowd. By the time they decided to exit the ministry with some loose promises that something would happen, this is how many people had descended on the capital. And this is before the Norwegian palace. So it's very inspirational to see what is happening now. Okay, stop sharing my screen. What is happening on the ground with the youth and this movement in general. But also, it gives me a lot of hope, because there's a lot of mobilization, and among every sector of Sami society, and also artists. We are so grateful to artists who bring our stories to the world, who travel, who go various places and tell about, what is Sami culture? Why is it worth fighting for? Why is climate change so problematic? You mentioned the balsa, which, by the way, it's called a peat moss mound, and it has permafrost in the interior, as Hanna Maria said. I hear stories about this all the time. I'm hearing stories about climate change from reindeer in this community all the time. Recently, I was involved. Well, I had an event together with these climate walkers. They're youth, also youth from other places, are taking a really an interest in the Arctic precisely because of what Madia has been told, that the Arctic is the canary in the coal mine. When you hear the things that are happening in the Arctic, I'm surprised there isn't more call to action. I'm surprised there isn't more fear, actually. So in addition, I would also just point out, which a very new case that's happened now in Finnmark province, where I am, the northernmost province of Norway. Well, it was, and then we were put together with Tromsø, and now we're going to be separated again, but that's a whole other story. Is that there is a huge natural gas production, an island that is the recipient of all this natural gas from the Barents. It's called Melkøya. And now, before, they were using the natural gas to actually power the island, but now they want to electrify it or use electric energy, which means that there will be even more wind power. There will be even more building of dams in Finnmark, and so this was like a huge issue just this last week, which will now probably take on even greater significance in some ways than Fosen, because the Norwegian government didn't follow up for the Fosen case, and now we're going to have yet another. So this is happening at an enormously accelerated rate. The drive, so at the same time that climate scientists, at the same time that climate justice activists are talking about the need to see the Arctic and what's happening in the Arctic, at this very same time, the paradox is that the Arctic is also being even greater colonized, that there's more and more extraction happening. And the thing is, I think one of the things that people get confused about, and again, I'm very tired, so maybe not so coherent, but that people get confused about, they think wind power, why would people be against wind power? And when one looks at the enormous amount of mining and what needs to go into producing one wind power generator, it's so paradoxical, because that has to come from somewhere. All that material has to come from somewhere. Wind power generators, as I understand it, last for 20 years. So they have to be replaced. And the other thing that, I've been talking to people just today who are very involved in this on the ground, and they say that the other issue here is that, wind power, the wind doesn't blow all the time enough to actually produce it all the time. So then the backup is to build even more hydroelectric dams. So all of these infrastructure, all the infrastructure that goes into this, all of the things that are needed to produce wind power, and these huge industrial projects are very destructive to the land base that gives rise to our culture. It gives rise to reindeer herding. It gives rise to all the harvesting that people do. It affects fishing. It affects everything. So, but at the same time that all of this is happening, parallel to the idea of the green grønne skifte. I'm so I can't find all the words in English. Yeah, green colonialism. No, the shift to green energy, green transition. I just read about these things in Norwegian, so I'm kind of like, at the same time that this is happening, there's just kind of three things happening at once. We have this greater activism, this greater call to renew Sami identity and to return to the Sami community, to return to the culture, to come and be a part of the culture and be a part of a Sami movement, at the same time that we have greater colonialism, and then we have this idea that in order to save the world, we have to give up everything. We have to give up our land. And we actually, it isn't going to. This isn't the solution, because you cannot replace sustainable ways of life with something that's only lasts for 20 years. As our guests have said to us, these are traditions that have been with us for thousands of years, that have developed since time immemorial, and have always been connected to nature. I think the Ratnu, I think I'll end there, is that nothing in the traditional way of making the Ratnu came from a factory. It all comes from nature. So I guess I will just end there by saying that I do see that we have hope, and I hope that all of you will take with you the importance of building these connections. And I want to thank also Maria for this project. It was 1 year ago that this was conceived of with us together in Inari, where that was all about building connection. It was all about Oktavota and this return to place and belonging, and understanding the importance of place and land and nature to continue the culture. I guess I didn't. I have to say one more thing. I realized that I didn't actually say where my father was from. He's from Lakkavotna, Langfjord, and Aksjavotna, which is Axfjord. And these are the two fjords. One is on the Altafjord, and the other is right on the border, actually, of the Troms province. And I guess Americans tend to say the distance in time. So I think about it like it's about 2 hours from where Hege is from. So Ologitu.
Ologitu. Okay, let me see if I can come back to the gallery. No, I don't want the gallery. I'm trying to figure out how to come back and to see maybe, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to see the room now. And I'm trying to minimize your screen, Ele Maria. Maybe you could try a minimization or something.
I can just turn my video off, or should I?
Yeah, go ahead and do that for just a moment, because there still might be a question for you, but it's still there.
My screen is?
Yeah, it's your...
shoot.
Can you help here so that...
I see. It's only when I speak, then I come back up. That's why. I can turn my... If I don't speak, then you don't see.
Okay. Well, I can see that y'all can see me in the room. You're a little itty-bitty tiny for me. Let me again see if I can see that a little better. Well, I may not be able to, but that's all right. What I wanted to do is to find out if there's anyone in the room who might have a question for any of the guests. If you still have your question in mind. And I'll give a minute for you to think about that. And if nothing comes up, I'll start with one. But I'll just find out. And I'm sure the people there in the room could, with the mics, could bring a mic to you or something like that. Yay.
Hi, my name is Lori, and I'm wondering, are there younger people now who are interested in your crafts and that you are teaching? because you've learned from your elders? And are there young people also interested in the handicrafts?
I don't know. Yeah, I have sound. A lot of younger is starting to get interested in the old handicrafts. Everything about the pandemic wasn't bad, because when the pandemic hit and the youth kind of got to stay at home, they had to find another way of entertaining themselves. There was a kind of interest in wool work, like knitting. There's more interest in the old way of doing the handcrafts, like spinning, dyeing yarn, doing leather the old ways. In my community, we have 3 handcrafters guilds, and we are kind of getting the youth to come to courses and they learn, and also try to include their children. So we that are not the kind of leader of the course, we take care of the children and we make bonfires and learn them how to use a knife, and while their parents are participating for the course. So it's getting more, hopefully it will be even more.
I think Janne teaches as well, and I'm not sure what age you teach.
I'm here. So actually I didn't learn these skills for my elder ones. My grandmother was a magnificent knitter. She was making these outfits and belts, everything. But I was 3 years old when we moved away, 2,000 kilometers away from her. So I was actually learning these things about the curses. Well, older ones, yes, but not my home. And now I'm teaching my daughter, who is 7. She knows a little bit how to spin already. She loves yarning, dyeing. She's helping me to get the reindeer fur away from the skin. And yeah, we are, just like I was saying, we are a little bit old school, and we well, our kids, I have 2 kids, now they are 8 and 9. They just got the phones. They didn't have phones until this summer. They got those this summer. We don't have like PlayStation, computers, so we are quite nature things and family. We are traveling usually in nature. So there's also younger ones in my course.
So Janne, question. I know you're teaching at the Sami school in Innari. What age group are you, are your students there? Are there young people as well as older people, or how does it go?
Well, our village, there is 140 people about, and there is only 12 kids, like under school, but it's like first 2 or 3
grade school.
Yeah. So usually my students are a little bit older ones. Middle age is about 60, 65. And yeah, so I am the teacher and they are my students. It's a little bit like, okay. But yeah, it's very fun to be with them. Yeah.
Well, I want to follow up with the question that Lori asked, because that was what was on my mind as well. And so I think I want to ask if any of you have thoughts or feelings or desires about how to teach more, how to reach more people, how to reach younger people. What could that take? What would that look like in your minds? And this isn't just to you, Janne. It's to everybody. If you have a thought, please share, but it's for everyone.
Well, I can tell that in Inari, they are a little bit bigger towns, that there is a school where I'm also teaching, and they're in like, I'm teaching in like night school, and there's like school what is like early in the morning and the daytime. There's lots of young people who wants to go there and study these soft materials or then hard materials, where's those bones and wood and stuff like that. And then there's the soft ones, what we are doing. Even
Great.
in south of Finland, they are coming in Inari.
Does anyone else have anything you'd like to add to that question about, or to the answer, the thoughts about what you would like to see happen, how it could happen if, you were in charge of the world, for these traditions to be passed on to younger people? What would that look like?
Well, in Sävetjärvi, where I live, we have the language nest. And ever since the baby goes to the language nest and is there, so also the culture comes at the same time. And it doesn't end into the language nest in Sävetjärvi. This is case in Sävetjärvi. It continues when you go to school. You have the culture class. 1 week, that's only 1 hour a week, but still it has to do with the culture, the Sami culture. So it comes, it's always there. And as for it's kind of sometimes the children aren't so happy about it because they have to do these things. So you have to sometimes bend the rules and try to figure out some new ways to do them and kind of at the same time teach the old one. So it is kind of like you have to go with the flow, like they say, with the children. And I think maybe the next step is to start making games about how to do traditional things, and then you can kind of keep it up and then try to get them to do it like for real.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything you'd like to say about it, or? Okay, is there another question from anyone? Is there anything from the guests
here.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Hi, I'm Leah. I'm Lori's sister. I was really struck by the dissonance between the Supreme Court and the Norwegian government. And I'm wondering a couple things. One is, does the Norwegian government in fact support the rebirth, the renaissance of the Sami culture in other ways? And what can happen to, what is necessary in political change? Huh? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, again, I apologize. I'm really tired. But that's a very interesting question because somebody spoke about governance, that Indigenous people have governance. And one of the things that has happened is that it's kind of like there's a view that the government wants us to have the culture because it's really important for their image. Norway has signed the ILO 169 convention. They're the only country that has the ILO 169 Convention on the Rights of Tribal and Indigenous Peoples, which actually is, a convention is much stronger than, it's pretty strong in the international human rights system, and also a signatory to all kinds of human rights regimes and frameworks. So at the very same time that all of this was happening, something I failed to mention, or that I just forgot, is that the Norwegian government actually recently wrote in the constitution that the Sami are, in fact, indigenous people of Norway. They have actually written in the constitution that we are the indigenous people. Also, the Norwegian Truth and Reconciliation report. Okay, we have the truth, and I think Madia mentioned that in the 12 minutes. The Truth and Reconciliation report was recently released. The most amazing event. It was read out loud by multiple members of the community, both Norwegian and Sami, and others. Also from the clan, and because the mandate was not just for the Sami, it was also for 3 national minorities of Norway as well, but all have a Finnish background, living in diaspora. And so, you know, yeah, there's a lot of money in Norway, right, that goes to cultural schools, to somewhat to language revitalization. We do have a lot of resources relatively compared to other places. However, I would say that when you look at how much language shift there's been, there will never be enough resources. You would have to give as much money as what was put into it, plus times 100, as much money that was put into taking the language in the policy of Norwegianization over 100 years, and times that by 100, and then adjust for inflation to ever get the resources necessary to actually for us to gain back the language. It's happening, though. Again, I say I have hope because people are learning the language again. So yes, there is, and you know, it's often said that the Norwegian side, we have the most money, but that is again because of fossil fuels. It's because of oil. So, and we don't have a culture without the land. We have to have the land. The land also gives rise to the language. I mean, the language is very important in reindeer herding. If we lose reindeer herding, then the language is probably gone, because the reindeer herding is where it is used, tied to a traditional livelihood. Now we see more and more people using the language in connection with Dwetji, with any Sami practice. You know, people are using the words. You're looking for the word for balsa, like it's, you know, this landscape words, place names. So, you know, that's the paradox. The paradox is that on the one hand, yes, the king apologizes. You know, we things are returned. There's a whole movement to get, you know, our cultural items back from various museums in Europe. But at the same time, they're taking the land. So it's kind of, you know, there's two things happening at once that just can't coexist.
I would like to make a small comment on that too, because I think that's pretty common for colonizers to separate culture from land. They want to keep the land because of the resources, because of the money. And then with the other hand, they say, yes, you can have your language, you can make your things, but that is a profound schism, and that occurs not only in nation states and colonization, it even occurs in academia. That sort of in the landscape of the separation between nature and culture, and how it's taught, that science and nature is over here, art and culture is over here. So it's very useful for colonizers to basically, you know, talk their talk, but not walk the walk at all. Thank you.
And Norway is very invested in their international image. So it's important that these stories are told internationally, which is why I was pretty political, because I think people in the American audience need to know, or internationally, that this is actually happening, and that Norway is not the human rights nation they claim to be.
Thank you. So I think that it's time to wrap things up here. I just want to make sure that there isn't another question and give a moment for that, and we'll wait and see. No. Oh, looks like one more question here.
I do have a quick question, and actually it's for you, Hannah Maria. You sang a folk song at the beginning of the presentation, and I was wondering if you could talk a little about that and the importance of folk music in Sami culture. I was just curious to hear more.
That was leud, which is the traditional music for the Skolt Sami. What? Oh. Hi, camera. Okay, so it is traditional Skolt Sami music. It is kind of, it's a story with the melody. We have, we have different Samis, and everybody has a little bit different culture. But for the Skolt Sami, the leud has been kind of like a social media, the old-time social media. You kind of, I feel, I don't like, yeah, you know what I mean. Old-time social media. You could tell a story about courting, going to the next village, finding a girl from there. Rigesko evane alcha, sonavade valle valche judeja, sonapani mekka patsavure, aragas volhutarinita. And that's just like a story, going to the next village and taking the girl. But also, it can be a story about, of course, the love, the happenings, the animals, anything. I could make a loud about this. Päivä leijem olympiast taipen evergreen. Longhausast taipen lai jenai hast laitomo mindset muin. So I'm here. It's fun. It's nice to talk to people, tell about our culture, and that is the very traditional way. What I did was old ones. I myself do new ones still today and try to keep up the tradition. But what I've noticed, teaching a language, that is a very easy task when you teach the children with the melody. They don't have time to think, did I say it correctly? Did it come out perfectly? And it's like, you just do it. Wave, way, putta, pava, yuli. Wave, way, putta, pava, yuli. And at the same time, you learn wave, head, butt, shoulder, knee, and then just a foot. So you learn it. Or weekdays we have this traditional dance in Finland. It is like, I don't know, schlager, some kind. And it has a dance. So you can teach with the children also with the movement. When you add the music and then you take the movement, and it's like, vuossark, maipark, se arrat, neljitpäiv. Piatnas, suevet, paas, babe. So you kind of take back, because it's usually the government taking from us, So we can take from the minority culture and take it for us and use it for our own purposes to teach the language. So, yeah, what else did you want to? Yeah, this is me. Loud is for mine, and I could talk forever about it and how to use it and what to do. But also one thing I have to add, it's a really, really good history book also. Because they have, even though we use a lot of, we don't say everything like straight. We go around and kind of tell about what somebody looks like or how somebody is or something like that. But history facts, like if there's bombing on a background when you're christening a child, then it's like, and then they use the correct word, who's there. And then you can go back in history and check, this is this village, this year, and about this time. So you find out more, and then you can actually tell who was the child who was christening at that time. So it's informative. Only thing you have to learn is the language first, but then it's very informative. But yeah. So now I'm gonna stop. I could talk about this forever. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think that we are going to draw this to a close, and we have some gifts for Laura. Is Laura Vermilion? Looks like I can't speak too well right now either. I know your name. Laura, could you please come up to the front? And I believe Hege has them for you. She'll speak on behalf of all of us for all that you have done and all that you have endured. In making this possible. Do you have a microphone that you can get?
You're talking here. It's a small gift as a thank you for us. It's a small part from the Sami land. It's leather from the reindeers up north. Janne made this, hand-stitched. I made this.
Oh, wonderful.
And you also get a book about Sami and the stoat. It's both written in Sami language and English.
Wonderful.
And I think we could write a little kind of greeting for you for
Wonderful.
making this happen.
Wonderful.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. And in my mom's language, it would be Gulna Tish is the thank you in my language. So.
In my language is tusen takk, kiitos, spasibo, takka.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, I think we'll close this up formally, and I will look forward to seeing you all when you get home. So again, thank you, Laura, thank you everyone, thank you electronic media, and the guests will be returning to their homeland, returning to Sami tomorrow. Hey, good night.
Sugarnakkar. But you can go and look for the handicrafts, and if any questions come up, just ask. Thank you.